Welcome back to the post All-Star Game version of the Jon Krawczynski Show. This is our basketball show at talknorth.com, highlighting the Wolves, also the NBA. Maybe we'll even talk a little high school hoops later in this show. He's Jon Krawczynski from The Athletic. I'm Jim Suhan from the Star Tribune and talknorth.com. We are coming to you today from the Aquarius Home Services Studios.
Scott for Aquarius Home Services, your independent authorized Connecticut dealer, bringing some love to your water. Isn't it time for softer skin and laundry, sparkling dishes, and water so good you'll want to hug your faucet? Connecticut is easy on salt, uses zero electricity, and delivers worry-free water you'll love. Schedule your free water analysis today at AquariusHomeservices.com and save up to 25% on a Connecticut whole home system. Aquarius, earning the right to be recommended.
We are presented to you by Giggly THC Beverages. Keep the good times rolling without the regrets. Giggly THC Beverages are your go-to for bold flavor and smooth vibes. Zero alcohol, no bad decisions, just THC-infused cocktails, seltzers, and teas packed with natural ingredients and performance-boosting superfoods like ashwagandha and ginseng. Find Giggly at more than 500 locations like Total Wine, MGM, and Cub Foods, or shop online at Giggly.com. Ready to upgrade your drink game? Use the code GIGLY-NORTH, G-I-G-L-I North, for 50% off your first order. Giggly, sip smarter, feel better. My wife and I have been drinking them at home, and we really enjoy them. Also want to thank our many sponsors, including Princeton's Liquors, TSR Injury Law, Royal Credit Union, True Vision Institute, and Lamb Chops clothing line. Thanks also to Aquarius Home Services in general. John, before we get to any of the other stuff, let's just go with this. What did you think of the All-Star Game? I actually was more entertained by this format than I had been in any other formats for a number of years.
Yeah, I liked I was very skeptical going in about the format. I just like, what are we doing here with all of this gimmicky stuff? I thought in general, the quality of play or the effort and all of the things that certainly we've been concerned about over the years and have gotten a lot of conversation over the years, I thought was better. In this format and in these games, I think that there's something to build on, or at least something to continue exploring further with the way that this was constructed. Maybe you do it a little differently. Maybe it is USA, the world, and snubs, or maybe it's, East, West, and maybe you replace the Rising Stars with an all snubbed team or something like that. I don't know, but I did like the gameplay itself. What I did not like was just like all of the fluff around it. Kevin Hart, doing things, telling jokes in the middle of these games, going to Mr. Beast for 15 minutes for some weird shooting contest, honoring the TNT guys in the middle of like the championship game. I just thought that there was way too much of that stuff that made it clear that this was not about the game, even though the league has been so focused on trying to get more competitiveness into it, that was a big turnoff for me. But the games themselves and the way that the players played, that was good. That was a decent weekend of basketball that way.
Agree completely. I think I didn't understand the Kevin Hart thing. Shaq, Charles Barkley is hilarious. Shaq is hilarious. Kenny's hilarious with them. Ernie's great with them. That show is what it is because those guys are all funny, and they're funny playing off each other. And then you stick a comedian there who has to justify his existence by giving you a joke every 5 seconds. That backfired so badly.
It like the thing that just boggled my mind, Jim, was that I was at the All-Star game last year when it was an abomination. Lack of competitiveness. They're shooting shots from 3/4 court, doing all this crazy stuff. And it was terrible. And we walked out of there. I know that league officials, including Commissioner Adam Silver and others, were really upset with the players for a lack of effort, for not taking it seriously, for making a mockery of the whole thing. And all we heard really in, the months leading up to this All-Star game was, this is a serious thing. We need you guys to really give your best effort to try and, at least make it look like you're trying, because sponsors are upset, fans are upset, we're taking some hits here, guys. We need your help. This is let's treat this as a serious endeavor. And then then their big initiative going into the game is we're going to have Kevin Hart, this comedian, make jokes in the middle of the game to the arena. And so the players can hear it and fans can hear it. And then people at home can hear it. And I mean, the jokes were not good. I laugh at Kevin Hart's stuff a lot. His stand-up stuff I think is really funny. The jokes were not good. No. They were just lame. But in general, it also just says, we are not taking this product seriously. Like, how can you ask the players to go out there, get lathered up in sweat, like get after it and compete while you're hearing Kevin Hart making cracks about big men shooting threes or whatever, this or that. It made no sense to me that was a good idea on the league's part. If you're trying to hammer home that, guys, this is a real thing. This is not a mockery. This is not a farce. This is a real event that we want you to compete in.
Agreed, completely. Yeah, and Kevin Hart, whatever you think of him as a comedian, most of the time, this was not the right
he was not
spot
good
for him. He wasn't good, and he was ill positioned. All right, let's get an ownership update next, and then we'll get into basketball topics and the Wolves' upcoming schedule. First, I want to let you know you should keep the good times rolling without the regrets. Giggly THC beverages are your go-to for bold flavor and smooth vibes. Zero alcohol, no bad decisions. Just THC-infused cocktails, seltzers, and teas packed with natural ingredients and performance-boosting superfoods like ashwagandha and ginseng. Find Giggly at more than 500 locations like Total Wine, MGM, and Cub Foods, or shop online at giggly.com. Ready to upgrade your drink game? Use the code GIGLYNORTH, GIGLI North, for 50% off your first order. Giggly, sip smarter, feel better. My wife and I are drinking this a lot, and we really enjoy it. All right, can you give us an ownership update, especially coming off what Adam Silver had to say?
Yeah, there was something really notable comments from Adam Silver this weekend at All-Star Weekend. First and foremost, he was asked just about, hey, what do you see with the Minnesota Timberwolves and Lynx ownership situation, and where do things stand? And his direct quote on that was, my expectation is that we'll move forward, but first, Glenn Taylor does have a decision to make as to whether to appeal that arbitration decision. That's Glenn's decision to make. I haven't talked to him directly about that. So, as we've said on this show, just to clarify for everyone, the ruling went in favor 2-1 for Mark Lore and Alex Rodriguez in the arbitration panel. Technically speaking, you cannot appeal that decision. What you can do is go to a federal court and ask a judge to vacate that ruling. And that to prove or to make that case stick, it's a very, very difficult process. You either have to be able to prove that the one or more of the panelists were compromised or biased in some sort of way, or you have to prove that the panelists who ruled in favor of the other side overstepped their authority in making their ruling. What I have said is, in the lead up to the ruling, it was my belief that had Glenn Taylor lost, he was not going to appeal. That said, I have not seen the language in the ruling and the reasoning and justification that the two panelists made for making their decision. So I don't know if they said some really, kind of out of pocket things in the ruling as their reasons, and then open the door for Glenn Taylor to challenge those. So still haven't heard whether Taylor is going to do that or not. We're kind of waiting to see, but I do think that Adam Silver making that known that he's still waiting on the decision as at least leaving the door open for some kind of challenge there. The other thing that he said is, he said one other quote that he had is, I think, though, that A-Rod and certainly Mark Lore are well known to the league at this point. They've already been vetted and approved as minority owners. I think they understood that the league had no role in this arbitration. That was something they agreed to as part of their purchase. And then he was, asked about, if he saw any reason that the group would not be approved if this thing goes forward. And he said he did not, but he said also he's not speaking for the board of governors who have to make the final vote. But in his eyes, he did not see a reason why the sale wouldn't be approved. So those comments are kind of strongly in Alex Rodriguez and Mark Lowry's corner in terms of, we have heard scenarios over the past couple of years, or over the past year, essentially, that, hey, maybe Lowry and Rodriguez win arbitration, but that the Board of Governors, votes them down, and doesn't approve of them, whether it's because of financials or anything else. And Glenn Taylor keeps it. It seems like these remarks would indicate that's probably not going to happen. Again, not a full guarantee that it won't happen, but I did think that it stuck out to me of like, okay, this is a commissioner that is generally speaking favorably about the new guys, when we have heard whispers of doubts and things about the new guys for quite some time. Yeah.
It sounds like we're headed in that direction. Let's get it over with. Please, let's just get it over with at this point. Like you said, we could speculate about the ownership stuff. We don't, as you said, we don't have any idea what's in that language. All right, let's actually get to basketball now. Timberwolves about to open a fascinating stretch in what has been, whether you've been entertained or not, has been a fascinating season in many ways. Before we get to the basketball talk, let's hear more about Princeton's Liquors.
Princeton's Liquors in Maple Grove. Bill Princeton and the Princeton family have been in the liquor business forever, in the North Metro. And if you want high quality selection, if you want great prices on all beer, wine, spirits, you go to Princeton's Liquors. They specialize in bourbon and in craft beer. So if you're going and you're looking for something unique, in the bourbon and craft beer spaces, if you are looking for something maybe a little expensive, you want to buy, a birthday gift or something like that for someone, or you want to impress people at a party, go to Princeton's Liquors. They will have what you want. They also have very affordable stuff, very like well-known and things that just kind of favorites for everyone throughout the year, no matter what time of year it is. So Princeton's Liquors in Maple Grove is the place. We've told you before, Bill Princeton was an intern with the Timberwolves and Lynx. He's a part of this basketball community. He supports us, and we hope that you support him. So go to Princeton's Liquors in Maple Grove. Great craft beer, great bourbon, great everything to do with wine, alcohol, and spirits. And tell them the Jon Krawczynski Show sent you.
Another great Minnesota company and citizen. TSR Injury Law has been supporting this show since pretty much the beginning. Now they're hanging out with Naz Reid, which is a great choice of a personality and player to sell their brand. But you should really know is if you're ever injured, you call 612-TSR-TIME. You'll deal with a lawyer. They will not charge you unless they win your case. And they win a lot of cases. That's why they're such a great success story. So just remember, 612-TSR-TIME, 612-TSR-TIME. We highly recommend them. We also highly recommend working with Royal Credit Union.
Watch your dreams and savings grow with a Royal Credit Union certificate. Whether you're saving for college, a vacation, wedding, or a down payment on a house, Royal's 4.25% annual percentage yield 12-month certificate can help you reach your savings goals faster. Royal certificates have no minimum opening balance and a locked-in rate for a guaranteed return at maturity. Open now at any Royal office or online at rcu.org/certificate saver. Early withdrawal penalties could reduce earnings and principal. APY accurate as of 2/1/25. Insured by NCUA.
All right, so tough 4-game stretch coming out of the break. Of course, the Wolves are coming off a very impressive victory while shorthanded against Oklahoma City. Where do you think this team is right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, the good news, Jim, is that I think all of the schedule metrics say that the Timberwolves have one of, if not the easiest schedule the rest of the way. And there's only 26 games to go. So, to reiterate this, the All-Star break is not at the halfway point.
No.
It's basically at the 2/3 point. There's only 26 games to go. That is not a lot of time. So the good news is that their schedule is, among the easiest down the stretch. The bad news is that, generally speaking, what we've seen this year is the Wolves do not play well against the easiest parts of their schedule. And they play much better against the challenging parts. And so they're going to have to really focus in here to kind of try and get up into that 6 seed, that 5 seed, and avoid the play-in. And as you said, though, coming out of the break, it's kind of a murderer's row schedule. You're at Houston, and remember that this is going to be sort of a rematch against the Rockets after a very emotional, very physical win over the Rockets at Target Center earlier this month. That was one of the more kind of chaotic and emotion-filled games of the season. And so the Rockets, I'm sure, are going to be ready and trying to settle a score in that game. Then you play the Oklahoma City Thunder twice back-to-back, Sunday and Monday. And then you go and play Luka Doncic, LeBron James, and the Los Angeles Lakers in LA later next week. And so after that, the schedule does lighten, but these first four are a murderer's row coming out of it. So if they can split these four, and then kind of get into the softer part of their schedule and try to make some hay, I think that would be certainly an ideal scenario. But they're going to get challenged immensely as soon as this break lifts on Friday in Houston.
Do you have any idea when Randall and DiVincenzo are coming back?
We don't yet, Jim. We're hoping to kind of get some updates on that. My guess is Wednesday or Thursday. We'll hear some more official updates on their outlooks. If I'm trying to read tea leaves and just kind of, make educated guesses at how this is all going to shake out, I think that Randall is closer to returning than DiVincenzo. I think DiVincenzo believes that he's going to be back sooner than later from his toe. I think that, there were real concerns when DiVincenzo first was injured that he was going to miss the rest of the season, that he was going to need surgery, that he has avoided surgery. I was talking to him just before the break, and he seems to be optimistic that he is improving and getting back closer to normal. He's still got a little ways to go, though, so I do not think he's, I would say, close to coming back. Randall is closer. I think that, that groin injury, he had told me earlier, in the first couple of days after the injury, he thought he would just need a little bit of time and the break and he'd be back. We'll see exactly how far that has progressed. But I think there's a chance that he is not ready for Friday. But we'll just have to wait and see officially there. But even if he's not ready Friday, I think him being back sometime in the next 2 weeks feels right to me. And so then the third guy, Jim, is Mike Conley. He had the thumb injury. I spoke to him right before the break, and he said that his thumb had been improving over the last few days. But it was still wrapped kind of heavily. It was still kind of a situation where it was painful for him to catch the ball and shoot it. And so he had to monitor and just see how that responded over the break. I think he is also close to coming back, but I still think that there is a scenario there where he's not quite ready yet, on Friday as well. So it is possible that the Wolves come out of the break the exact same way they went in it, without Randall, without DiVincenzo, and without Mike Conley. And so we'll see. We'll just wait and see on that. But I think all three are getting closer to coming back. And if I had to rank them in order, I'd say Conley, Randall, DiVincenzo is probably that's what it feels like in terms of the order of operations and how close they are to returning. But we'll have to see if we get more clarity as that game approaches.
The next question for John to ponder: will this team be better when those players come back because they will develop some depth and given Shannon Jr. and Clark some playing time and Dillingham some playing time, or will it just be more chaos? So that'll be the next question I ask John. Right now, we want to hear more about True Vision Institute.
True Vision Institute in Bloomington. I've been telling you about it for, we're coming up on 6-8 months now, and 6-8 months later, I'm still just loving life after LASIK surgery. Not only just how much easier it has made my life to operate without glasses or contacts, but also just how easy it was to navigate the process. It's a very daunting kind of prospect to think about, going in and having eye surgery and really kind of going through all of the steps that you have to take to make sure that this is the right situation for you. But with True Vision, They made it so easy. There was zero pressure. I remember we first got started at ChewVision in the playoffs, and I went in for my first consultation, went through everything. They were very knowledgeable, very warm and welcoming. And then I said, hey guys, I need some time to think about this and to just get through the playoffs and navigate it. And then we'll circle back later in the summer. And they said, no problem. Just tell us when you're ready and we'll be here ready for you. And so that's exactly how it happened. I went in July and got it done. And all these months later, just could not be happier with how everything went at ChewVision. If you go to chewvision.com, you can get yourself set up with your consultation. They will take you through all of the steps. They will educate you on all of the options. And when you walk in to their offices, you will get essentially just a big warm hug and say, hey, we're happy to see you. Let's get this thing done. Let's get you in the right situation for your vision correction. You will not regret it, just like I did. Instead, you will be kicking yourself and wondering why you didn't do this 10 years ago. So go to chewvision.com, set up your consultation, tell them the Jon Krawczynski Show sent you, and get moving, ditching those glasses and contacts, and find out how much easier it is without having to deal with those hassles. Go to chewvision.com.
We'll do a Twitter question presented by Shepherd Goods and Lamb Chops clothing line later in the show. Right now, let's hear more about Shepherd Goods and Lamb Chops clothing line.
SGLambchops.com is the place to go for the most comfortable, stylish, casual wear you can find. Hoodies, sweatpants, shorts, t-shirts, hats. They have them all at sglambchops.com, Shepherd Goods and Lamb Chops Clothing. You see their stuff all around Target Center. You can wear it at home, watching games, watching the All-Star game. You can wear it for a night out on the town in the North Loop and still feel like you're fitting in and everything is good to go. And Jordan and Craig and everyone at Lamb Chops, again, another Minnesota local community company that is invested here, that does work here, that is embedded in everything that we want in the basketball community here. You see Jordan and Craig courtside at Lynx and Timberwolves games. They're supporters of this podcast. They're supporters of the basketball community. So we like to support them too. If you use the promo code JONK20, you get 20% off anything at sglambchops.com. JONK20, 20% off at Shepherd Goods and Lamb Chops Clothing.
So when these guys start coming back from injury, do you see a strengthened and deeper team, or do you see more trying to figure out how to play together chaos?
It's going to be interesting, Jim. I really don't know how it's going to go because, DiVincenzo in particular has been out for a long time. Yep. The most unfortunate part about the timing of these injuries was that DiVincenzo had just gotten into the starting lineup and was really playing well. And that group was playing well together after, the first couple of months of the starting lineup really struggling. You were starting to see that group come together with DiVincenzo in the lead guard spot there. And then he goes down. And then Julius Randle, I think, was playing really well right before he got hurt and was starting to find his groove. Maybe it was fewer shots, more passing, playing really good defense in the post. Like he was starting to find his rhythm and then, he pulls the groin on the layup attempt. And so, both of those guys being out, at the time that they were leaving, I don't know how quickly they're just going to be able to jump right back into the grooves that they had made for themselves before they were injured. The other thing to look at is that the way that the Timberwolves are playing with Naz Reid in the starting lineup, it certainly has opened things up for Anthony Edwards in terms of getting to the basket and being more aggressive that way. I think that teams are having a harder time packing the paint with Naz out there as a threat on the perimeter, and he's shooting like 50% from three since January 1st, something ridiculous. So that's been a different element, and how Chris Finch kind of incorporates the guy, the established guys back into this group that has started to show some promising signs is going to be very, very interesting. I don't think it's going to be easy. So I want to see, does Chris Finch just go back to the old lineups with DiVincenzo starting, with Randall starting, that sort of thing? Or does the impact that Naz Reid has made, that Jalen Clark has made, that Terrence Shannon Jr. has made lately, do those types of contributions change the way that Chris Finch looks at his rotation and his lineup combinations? And does it alter it in a significant way? I don't know what the answer is yet. And I think we're all waiting to see exactly how he plays that when he has those options.
Yes. It's going to be fascinating. And, I wrote about it the other day. I feel like Naz Reid has become kind of the third in their new big three. I mean, Julius Randle has played better of late, but Naz Reid is like the third priority, isn't he?
I think he has to be, Jim. He's 25 years old. He is certainly much closer in age to Edwards and Jaden McDaniels, who has been playing tremendous basketball. And that is a promising kind of core of players. Julius Randle is just older. Like that's what he is. And I think what we've seen is I've said this all season long on the podcast. I think Julius Randle is a good and positive player for the Timberwolves. I think he's doing what Karl Anthony Towns is doing in New York? No. But I think that when he is on the floor, the Timberwolves almost always win those minutes. So that's good. Like that is a quality player that can be helpful. But I do think the ceiling for Naz Reid is higher. At this point in his career, Naz shoots the three ball much better than Julius Randle. He also is just more versatile in his offensive game than Randle is. And the thing that really sticks out as well with Naz is that he makes quick decisions in the half court. You rarely see Naz holding the ball for long stretches of time and stagnating the offense. I think sometimes that can be a good thing with Julius Randle. Sometimes he can settle things down, kind of dribble it in the post, bully ball to the basket, and really help them. But in general, in the aggregate, Naz Reid brings more juice to this team than Julius Randle does. If it's an either or situation, I don't know that there's much of a decision. That said, what I will say is, man, there have been some games during his absence that they really missed Julius Randle. Mm-hmm. They missed him against Milwaukee when no one else could make a shot in that game. I think that Julius Randle is probably a guy that gets you 5 or 6 buckets, and you win that game kind of rather easily. Same with Washington. Same with Sacramento. Just kind of these games where the offense is struggling to kind of just get anything moving. Randle is really good at those situations. And so they have missed him during these times, but I think Naz Reid is the guy that has to be prioritized between the two of them.
Agreed. It'll be really interesting to see how Finch plays this coming out. And it's not a news topic, but Terrence Shannon Jr. and Jalen Clark they look like NBA players. They just bring so much. How do you think he fits those guys in as these guys come back from injury?
Yeah, I think that my estimation is once they get back to the fully healthy 8 that were dominating the minutes at the start of the season, really for the first 2.5 months of the season, once you get those back, I still think that what has to happen going forward is it has to be a full 9-man rotation and maybe 9.5. But I think that 9th man can be flexible depending on matchups. Do you need shot creation tonight? Well, maybe that's a Rob Dillingham night. Do you need physicality and transition? Well, that's a Terrence Shannon Jr. night. Do you need just perimeter defense and making sure you're locking up against a potent opponent that can score in many different ways? Well, that's a Jalen Clark night. But what we have seen, I agree with you, Jim, in that we have seen Jalen Clark, Terrence Shannon, and really, I think Rob Dillingham has had really good moments lately too. They're all just saying, hey, we belong in the rotation. You can't have 11 or 12 guys in the rotation. That's just that's too much. But I think that you can really have a true ninth man, and then even maybe have another half if you need it for flexibility with matchups. Now, how do you get there? That's a challenge, but I think you might see maybe it's a reduction in Rudy Gobert's minutes. Maybe he doesn't play 33, 34. Maybe he's down around 30. Maybe you're scaling back. If Nikhil's having an off night shooting, maybe you scale his minutes back. Or if Mike Conley is, maybe scale him back to the 20 to 25. There's ways that you can kind of play with the rotation to claw back some minutes and open them up. It's just, you have to be a little bit creative with it, but absolutely 100% that ninth spot in the rotation has to be a good 15 minutes, and you put guys out there who have shown that they can change games and make an impact in multiple ways. And even though this is going to be a white knuckle finish all the way down these last 26 games, Chris Finch has to really open his heart and mind to the young guys playing important roles where it was clear that he was resistant to that earlier in the season.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I assume Ant's injury was just him trying to not aggravate anything that's bothering him right now. Nothing serious.
It seems nothing serious. I've checked in on it and looked at it a little bit. And I will say, when it happened on Sunday and he wasn't playing, I assumed that the justification was going to be a hip injury. It said groin soreness. What I can say is that in watching him in the locker rooms and moving around those last few games before the All-Star break, I do think that I could see that it was more than just the hip that was bothering him. So I do think that groin thing was real and that he was feeling some of that. And this was not sort of similar to LeBron James, who just basically said, I'm not playing. I think that he left Minnesota for San Francisco intending to play in the game and then was not feeling good. Now, do I also think that the possibility is out there that Ant just did not want to play in the game? Yeah, I think that's a real possibility, because everything that I've seen from Anthony Edwards in his previous trips to the All-Star game is he's not really all that interested in kind of these, exhibition competitions. Like it just doesn't appeal to him. He doesn't take them all that seriously. It's not really that important. So I could have seen him go through all of the stuff at All-Star Weekend and be like, man, I don't really want to play. But I do think that there was some legitimacy to the groin thing that he's been going through. But I would expect him to play on Friday at Houston, and I would expect him to keep going through all of that stuff as the season progresses here.
Did he have a chance to finish off the Kevin Durant trade that they're going to make this summer while he was there?
I think we saw some video of him and KD hanging out, spending time together. And they are good buddies, and I'm sure that they spoke a lot, and enjoyed each other's company. And I would not be surprised at all if Ant was saying, hey, hang in there, big guy. We're coming. We're going to make a run at you again this summer. And again, for people who have kind of blown up my mention saying, we can't give up the farm for KD. We can't do that. He's too old now. I would say that this summer, I would expect the price to drop considerably on Kevin Durant if he is made available in a trade, because he has 1 year left on his deal. We'll see what happens with the Phoenix Suns down the stretch. If they do not play well, I think that affects the asking price. There's just a lot of things that kind of go into it. So I think a deal is easier to make this summer than it was over trade deadline. It does not mean it will happen, but I would imagine that Ant playfully says, just hang in there, big fella. We'll come and get you. They had those conversations. They may have had those conversations this weekend.
Joe Ingles, Crunch, and Josh Minot. I think just do the deal.
It might take just a little bit more than that, but you're in the same ballpark there.
Let me plug it into the trade machine here. One more note. This is a little off our usual realm of topics, but John brought it up when we were getting ready to do the show. The Hopkins Wayzata foolishness at a boys basketball game. John, I didn't pay much attention to it, but you might want to update us on just exactly what's going on in that world right now.
Yeah, just really unfortunate. I mean, two of the best programs in the state, coached by coaches with great reputations, that have won a lot of games in their respective schools. And what you saw, you saw this great game that came down to the wire, 1-point win for Hopkins, controversial call at the end of the game, but it was an intense game between two rivals, packed gym, everything that high school sports is supposed to be. And then, unfortunately, the adults got in the way. And we saw the Wayzata coach kick a chair, pull his team away from the handshake line. We saw Hopkins coaching staff that has a reputation for being belligerent with referees continue that reputation and arguing calls all game long and complaining and whining. And we saw a Hopkins administrative staff completely fail when they allowed Hopkins students to kind of rush the court and follow Wayzata to the locker room. One kid threw a garbage can at a Hopkins or at a Wayzata player. It was just a bleep show all the way around. And in the ensuing days, we have seen Wayzata do the right thing and suspend Coach Brian Schnettler for a game, sending a message that this is not acceptable. We have seen nothing of the sort from Hopkins. They wrote not even a sternly worded letter, just like a letter to the basketball community, not even signed by a school administrator, saying, hey, we're better than that. Let's work on it. But what we have seen from Hopkins for years and years is that they shirk responsibility and accountability, and they allow their coaching staff to just bully these referees and act so boorishly. And it seems like that's happened again. So it's just unfortunate. And I know that complaining about complaining to officials and coaching staffs, writing officials is a problem throughout youth sports and high school. So it's not unique to Hopkins, but what it does is it just illustrates how difficult it is for referees in this kind of day and age. We have assistant coaches on Hopkins just riding these officials, which is ridiculous. It's absolutely absurd. My hope was that coming out of that, with the video that surfaced, with kind of the attention given to it, is that it would allow both programs and really even kind of coaches around the state to look in the mirror and say, hey man, we got to just be better than this. Like, we are failing these kids in terms of setting an example. We've seen that from Wayzata. We haven't seen it from Hopkins. So we'll see how that goes going forward. But just really a disappointing scene from two really well thought of programs, and the way that the adults and the leaders conducted themselves was just it was unacceptable. So
I'm glad you brought it up. Good stuff. John Malay's show on preps across the state of Minnesota, we always highlight and celebrate officials. You don't treat the officials well, they won't do the job. You won't be able to play the games. Very simple, beyond just the fact that high school coaches and administrators should be setting a good example. So thanks for bringing that up. Do you have a Twitter question for us?
We do, from Austin Duke Schindler. Are you surprised at all by Anthony Edwards' shooting numbers within the last minute of the game? And do the fourth quarter numbers overall make up for that? It's a good question. We've had a lot of discussion about Ant in quote unquote in the clutch lately with kind of the way things have gone. I wrote about the loss. I think it was after the loss to Milwaukee when he shot a step back three that could have won it and missed. There's someone has put like this compilation of all of his shots when to take the lead or tie the game in the final 24 seconds of regulation or overtime in his career. And he's 2 for 21 in those situations. And so I would say that first and foremost, the ball in your hands at that time of the game with everything on your shoulders, it's an incredibly difficult situation. There's not a lot of guys that are above 50% in those situations. So, you're taking generally a contested shot. There's a lot of pressure on you. And, even, Kobe Bryant, all these guys who you think of as real clutch guys have gone through their stretches of their careers where that shot isn't fallen. So first of all, it's a lot to put on his shoulders. But secondly, Ant wants it on his shoulders. And I think that is where right now the problem lies, in terms of the Wolves are entirely too predictable in these last possession situations right now. The ball is going to go to Anthony Edwards. It's almost surely going to be a step back three because he trusts it so much, and that's what he believes in. That's the shot that he can get off. And that just makes it exceedingly easier to guard. And so I think that Ant's decision making in those situations has to improve, and the more practice he gets at it, the more it will improve in terms of how he gets to his shot, what he's looking for. You're keeping his head up for other teammates as well. And I do think that Chris Finch can do a better job of building plays to even if it gets to Anthony Edwards, to get him the ball in situations where he can go to the basket a little bit easier. I think that has to be looked at as well. But I just think that in general, the Wolves need more variation. And I love that Anthony Edwards wants to take that shot and does not think 1 second about the ones that he's missed in the past. You need to have that sort of a mindset. But I also think that the process has to improve, both for him individually and the Timberwolves as a group, if they're going to try and have more success in these situations.
Good stuff, John. Appreciate it. You can also catch John on the Viking Update Show at talknorth.com. Check out all of our other shows. When you like the show, please subscribe to your favorite podcast app. We do appreciate it, and we'll be back to talk to you next week.